Hello and welcome. I am Sarah Dietrich. I am a faculty member at Southeast Missouri State University in the English department, and I also do a lot of work in the Master's in TESOL. And I thank you for your interest in this presentation and in the project that I'm going to be telling you about. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. The project that I'm going to be sharing with you in this presentation is one that I've been involved with for about 5 years, and it brings together students in the Master's in TESOL with adult learners of English who are in Afghanistan, and they come together for online synchronous tutoring sessions. This little bit of me teach that I have here at the top of the slide is not a direct quote, but it does reflect the reaction that I get from some of the students when they come into the course that I teach on teaching grammar to multilingual learners, because they're surprised that they are going to be in the role of tutor or teacher, because some of them don't have any teaching experience when they come into this course. So in this presentation, we are going to talk a little bit about online collaborations in general, because this project was an online collaboration. Tell you a little bit about service learning, which is the model that informed the design of this project. Tell you about the project and participants, and then most importantly, share with you what is really the heart of this presentation and the heart of the project, participants' voices. And in this presentation, I should say, I'm going to focus exclusively on tutor voices, the students who are in the Master's in TESOL program. We'll conclude with some conclusions from the students' perspective, I should say, and also some lessons learned for those of us who are teacher educators, and some ideas about things to keep in mind if you would like to put together a project like this. And I hope that this presentation will answer some questions about this project and about online collaborations like this one. I also hope that it's going to spark some new questions for you, and that if you are available, that you'll join us for the synchronous discussion on October 20th. And if you're not, I hope you can tell already I'm very excited about this project and happy to talk about it with you. I will share my email at the end of this presentation, and I hope you will not hesitate to be in touch so we can talk more. So to get started, again, as I said, this project was an online collaboration. So it leveraged technology to bring people together, which is something that I expect that many of you are doing right now, perhaps more than ever before. If you're interested in thinking about different models of online collaboration and taking a look at the history of online collaboration within the field of education, I encourage you to take a look at this article by O'Dowd, 2018, which really sums up and looks at the evolution of different types of online collaboration since the inception of the internet. As you probably know, some projects are asynchronous, so people are online at different times. Some are synchronous, like the one I'm going to be telling you about in this presentation, where people are online at the same time. The term virtual exchange refers generally to projects which bring together students in academic institutions in different parts of the country or different parts of the world. And the term service learning is a different kind of project, which I'll talk about more on the next slide, which brings together people in an academic setting with a community partner. And e-service learning refers to electronic service learning, or service learning projects that leverage technology, like the project that I'm telling you about in this presentation. If you're interested in knowing more about e-service learning, take a look at Straight and Nordyke's book from 2015. Again, what is service learning? This project that I am telling you about, as I said, brought together students in an academic course and participants in a community partner organization or project, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But service learning is a cycle of action and reflection. It's experiential learning. Students engage in some kind of action, or we could use the word service, and that action is tied to the curriculum. It's part of the syllabus, and the action that the students engage in really becomes one of the texts for the course, something to talk about, something to analyze, something to learn from. And a key part of any service learning project, and I would argue a key part of any teacher education or teacher development course, is reflection. More specifically, service learning it has been leveraged in different fields, but more specifically, is focusing on teacher education. Service learning offers an opportunity for us as teacher educators to put students at the center of the learning process. Engaging in service learning gives participants opportunities to challenge their previous assumptions, as you'll see in the student reflections that I'll share with you, and also opportunities to think beyond and quite literally work beyond the confines of their own experiences and their own geographic areas. So I mentioned again that the participants in this project were students in the Masters in TESOL program, and then people in Afghanistan who were brought together by a community partner. And the community partner was Pax Populi, which you see listed here in the photo. Pax Populi means peace of the people in Latin, and Pax Populi is a nonprofit organization based in the United States. And the aim of the organization, as the name suggests, is peace building. Part of the way in which Pax Populi puts its desire and its action for building peace into practice is through tutoring projects like the one that the students I'll be telling you about participated in. It pairs Afghan learners, adult Afghan learners, with tutors all over the world. The participants that we're focusing on in this presentation were students like the ones on the previous slide. They were adult students in Afghanistan, male and female, as you saw, who are studying or interested in building their English or developing their English for a variety of different reasons. Some are English teachers, some work in nonprofit organizations, some are interested in studying abroad, and they come to this project voluntarily to work on their English and to interact with tutors like the ones who are described on the left-hand side of this slide, who we'll be focusing on in this presentation, who in this case, they were graduate students in a Master's in TESOL program, as I've said. These students were actually enrolled in an asynchronous online course when they participated in this project. So they met one-on-one synchronously with their student in Afghanistan, but my interaction with them was through an asynchronous course. The students in the course, when they took part in the presentation, took part in the project, were living and working in Germany, in Japan, Thailand, Turkey, different parts of the United States. Many of them were born in the United States, but a number of them were born in other countries, including France. We had 2 participants who were born in Syria and 2 who were born in Vietnam. So to sum up, the project brought together, again, tutors and students in Afghanistan for one-on-one synchronous sessions. They used Zoom to be in touch 10 times for 90-minute sessions, and they were paired quite simply based on schedules and availability. And you can imagine that with students who are located all over the world, making those schedules was somewhat of a puzzle, but it all worked out. So now we're turning to the most important part of this presentation, and obviously, for me, the heart of this project, which is the tutors and their experiences. So as I mentioned, when we talked about service learning at the beginning of this presentation, a key element of service learning is reflection. And so the tutors submitted 6 written reflections over the course of the semester, and they focused on a variety of different topics, fears and concerns about their project, about the project in general, successes and challenges that they were facing in their work with their students, plans for their future lessons over the course of the project, also on opportunities for personal and professional growth as a result of their participation in this project, and also thinking about connections between this project and not only the course they were enrolled in, but in other courses that they might be taking as part of their master's in TESOL. The voices and experiences that I'm going to be sharing on the next slide come from two sets of reflections. We'll look first at what I refer to as the preflection, which is the first journal that students write before they meet the student that they'll be working with. And then we'll look at the final reflection, which is submitted when they've completed all 10 of their sessions. So at the outset of the project, again, before meeting their students, a number of tutors shared some concerns and regarding themselves and regarding the project. Here we have someone who is an experienced teacher who is expressing some feelings of inadequacy and some concerns about her own teaching, more specifically about grammar and being able to answer grammar questions that her students might have. Student, I should say. We see also that tutors had concerns about the fact that they'd be teaching online. Here we have someone who's also an experienced teacher who has taught in traditional classroom settings, but is wondering how his experiences and strategies will transfer into the virtual or online setting. And he too has some concerns about answering questions regarding grammar and grammar rules. We see too that tutors were concerned about making a connection with this individual. They're worried about differences in culture and also in language that might make it difficult for them to establish communication with this person who they'll be meeting with online. The person whose voice we heard on the previous slide is someone who grew up in the United States and is fluent and confident in English. Here we have somebody who identifies herself as not being a native speaker of English, and she's tying her own concerns about connecting with her student to cultural differences, but also to her own linguistic proficiency in English, and wondering whether her own English might make it difficult for her to connect with and communicate effectively with her student. I focused so far on concerns, and I don't want to give you the impression that students were only worried or concerned as they went into this project. Some of them really were excited and had hopes and goals for this project. This person, for example, sees the project as a way of developing skills that will be important for her as she goes forward in her professional development as an English teacher, teaching online and working with people from different parts of the world. This student too acknowledges that she has questions about what's going to happen, but also focuses on her own confidence and her own strengths as a teacher to really guide her work with her student. And I just want to, just a little footnote that this quote comes from one of the two students who was born in Syria. Throughout this course, and really throughout all of my work with future and current teachers, I tried to get the teachers to focus on their own strengths, their own abilities, and also to take an asset-based approach in their work with their students. And here we see someone who, like the previous two tutors who we heard from, is also someone who did not grow up speaking English as her first language, but rather than seeing the fact that she says she struggles when sometimes when she's studying English, rather than seeing this as a deficit, a problem, she really sees it as an asset. She's positioning herself here as a role model, someone who can share her own story and experience with her student. And we also see that she's envisioning how she's going to talk about her student, this Afghan learner, with her future students, and again use this Afghan learner as an example, a role model for her future students. So we looked in the previous quotes at the experiences and the feelings, the perspectives that the students were bringing to the project. And now we're going to look at the final reflections and some of the takeaways or lessons learned. We have here some examples of the self-confidence that some of the tutors felt at the completion of the project. I've developed the courage to teach even when I may not know all the answers. This quote comes from the person who you might remember was talking about feeling inadequate about her own teaching. Also, we have the person who had said that she had some questions, but also felt confident in her teaching. And here she's coming back to that confidence and saying that she no longer has mixed feelings. She's only focusing on the positive and her abilities as a teacher. We see in tutors' reflections connections to the specific course they were involved in, but also connections to their philosophy of teaching and working with English language learners in a variety of different settings. And the fact that this tutoring experience connected to what they see as important in working with any student. If you remember, we had a number of students who were concerned about working in the online environment, and we see in this quote that they were right to be concerned about working in the online environment. It is complicated, particularly in a country where there might be power outages or there might be different difficulties having a reliable internet connection. But we also see in this quote that the tutors not only faced but really overcame these technological challenges and focused on their work and their connection that they were building with their students. If you remember, there were several quotes that we looked at where tutors were concerned about the linguistic and cultural differences that they might face in working with a student from Afghanistan. This quote I know is very, very long, and I hope that you'll take the time to go back and look at it. It's in response to a prompt asking the tutors what information or what advice they would give future participants in this project. Here also is advice that someone would offer a future participant, and she's focusing again on this idea of the fact that things may not always go perfectly in this project and in teaching in general, but that's okay. And that part of being a good teacher, she's suggesting, is taking risks and being willing to make mistakes and being willing to be open with your students about those risks and acknowledge when you don't know something or when something hasn't gone well. I mentioned that part of the service learning model is using this action, using the service as text. And here we have an example of that where the tutor is talking about her interactions with her student as something that was part of her understanding of the course. It both gave her an opportunity to apply things that she was learning in the course and also an opportunity to reflect on the work that she was doing with her student and how what she had learned with her student might inform her understanding of concepts that were being explored in the class. Again, as I mentioned, tutors were asked what advice they would give to other students, and you can see here someone is suggesting that the advice that I gave was that there's no real way to mess this up. And I was excited to see that this student, and I hope other students, took the message, exactly that message from this project. There will be things that are complicated, there will be things that don't work, but you and the student will benefit. Everybody will learn through a project like this one. Which brings us to the lessons learned for teacher educators. I would say if you're interested in doing a project like this, go for it. It's not always easy, but it's definitely worth the reward. It's important if you're coming into a project like this, something I've learned over the past 5 years, to be in constant communication with the community partner, with your participants, offer support sometimes on a daily basis if things aren't working with internet or a lesson doesn't go well. It's important also going into a project like this where there are so many uncertainties to be able as teacher educators to model a space in which risk taking is something that's an important part of teaching. As you can see from the students' reflections, the tutors, not everything went well or perfectly as they planned, but overall, they gained an enormous amount from this interaction and from participating in this project. Finally, I would say that as a teacher educator, I come out of my work with this project inspired by my students and reminded of how important it is to take an asset-based approach, to see the students' differences, to see their experiences as strengths, and to build on those strengths, to encourage them to build on those strengths. Some of the tutors who've had the most powerful experiences, the most powerful impacts on their students might on paper not have the highest level of English language proficiency, but they are dedicated teachers, they worked hard, and they really made a connection with their students. And so as teacher educators, I think it's imperative for us to encourage those students and to see their teaching and their commitment as assets. I'll leave you with these references to some of the texts that I cited in the presentation. I've also added one here. You'll see that I wrote something that I wrote with two colleagues about this project. We're currently working on a book about the project too, and so if you're interested in knowing more about the project, I hope you'll take a look at this brief article and also be in touch with me about the book. And then finally, thank you. You have my email here. I am grateful for your time and for your interest in this project. I do encourage you to join us for the synchronous questions if you can, and please do not hesitate to send an email if you'd like to be in touch. I'm going to leave you here with the words of one of the project participants because they really are the heart of this project and the reason that I do what I do, and I expect if you're a teacher educator, the reason that you do what you do. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to being in touch soon.